Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I felt that.
Good evening. Welcome to the planning board meeting of January 10th, 2024. First on the agenda is Town of Carmel Terminals amended site plan. Mike?
Yeah, the necessary variances were granted by the ZBA, and all of my zoning comments have been addressed.
Rich?
So the applicant has noted the referrals that were needed, the permits that are required. Applicant has provided information on D2 with regards to stormwater. It's going to be, I believe, under the 5,000 square feet of disturbance, but we just need to understand how stormwater connect the operations at the site right now, how you're going to connect all in. Some of that information is out there. I requested a water and wastewater report. The applicant, there's no wastewater there at the site, and the existing sewer service is to be capped, and the existing water service line is to be retained. They said that it's going to be seldom used. We just need to have that defined, you know, when you say that, what that means, and just so we understand, just some kind of gross number, Adam. It doesn't have to be, you know, we know it's not going to be used that much, but we need to have something. And you're going to be metered anyway on the grand scheme of things, but we just want to have it as a matter of record. Applicant has not acknowledged that a stormwater management agreement would be needed. They've indicated an oil water separator has been provided. If this so, this would be part of a stormwater management.
The meeting's already live.
Okay. Any performance bonds or engineering fees, applicant has noted that. Applicant has noted the sidewalks and manholes. There are electrical poles. We just need to confirm that NYSEG is going to be able to bring that approval over the way you have it laid out there. There are no signs. But what we need to do is get additional information. The proposed method of capping the sewer lateral, I couldn't locate that on the drawing, so we really need to dive into that. I had our operators look at it. So if we don't need to get that tonight. We can work. Just call me and we'll work it out so that the board doesn't have to work with it. We're gonna meet anyway for a water system shutdown for it, so we can meet and talk about the other stuff. Applicant has pretty much noted all other comments. Again, it's that whole located proposal method of capping the sewer lateral that we'd be concerned about. Applicant has provided information about bottom and top elevations of the wall. The highest point is 10 foot. All wall calculations should be certified by a structural engineer. You may need to put a safety fence. It depends on how people can maybe not access or get to the top of the wall, just for safety issues. So,
Thank you, Rich. And Pat?
So there were a considerable amount of comments originally on this because it was sort of understanding how the operation was going to work. The applicants did quite a good job in responding to all of those issues. We really had one issue that was of some concern. So as from the property and as illustrated on the plan, there's no curb cut. It's the entire frontage is sort of open.
Yep.
They provided a vehicle maneuvering plan that shows how vehicles would access the site, which allows them to move through the site in a frontward direction without backing up. However, it requires the open curb cut in the front to maneuver onto the site. So as opposed to our typical position, which would be provide curb cuts, in this case, there aren't any today, and it wouldn't benefit how the site operates. So I think they've resolved that issue fairly well. Virtually every other issue was addressed. The only other minor comment we had was about the potential of adding landscaping to the site. And again, when you overlay that concern with the maneuvering of vehicles on the site and the parking and storage, there really isn't any space to provide that landscaping. So with those two caveats, I think they've done a very good job of responding to the issues. The next step in this is going to public hearing.
Comments from the board? So Adam, just, maybe it's a little repetitive, the trailer that's there now is leaving the site?
That goes away, yes.
Okay. And compared to the amount of tanks you have there today, will it be the same number in the future?
It's the same number of tanks, I believe. The capacity is somewhat increased, which is not indicative of an increase in any kind of intensity, increase in the intensity of the use. I think it's more of a storage issue. And the footprint of the tank enclosure is, again, more or less in the general location of the existing. Let me see if I can find the existing conditions plan here.
It could actually reduce the traffic because bigger tanks, less deliveries possible.
I want to emphasize what Adam said. So this is not changing the way the site operates today. It's just going to be a better site to operate. So
Yeah, it's-
intensity and so forth, no change.
It's not an overly busy, lots of traffic type of business.
No, and I think we gave a breakdown of like the average traffic that'd be coming onto the site in terms of customers, and I think you'll see it's pretty minimal. Again, and no employees on the site. It's really just customers,
So-
a handful of customers a day.
This is strictly storage.
Yes. Well, customers do come to load there, to pick up fuel.
So is it, how many times a week, a month will trucks come in to fill the tanks?
Right.
And what is the daily or weekly anticipation of how many trucks will be customers coming to fill up and leave the site?
So we had responded in the letter, the numbers we provided by the applicant were that in the winter months, there are approximately 15 to 20 customers per day. In the summer months, this number is reduced to 3 to 5. Bulk deliveries in the winter can be up to 5 to 7 per day, which reduce down to 0 to 2 during the summer months. And it's also just important to note that this is not an increased number of customers. It's not an increased number of deliveries. It's just a continuation of the existing operation.
Will the bulk deliveries be scheduled at a certain time, not to conflict with customer deliveries? So you could have multiple trucks come in and out at the same time?
I'm sorry, just for the people watching, are you going to come up and speak into the microphone and state your name, please?
My name's Jack Dirk, and I'm with Carmel Terminals. All of the deliveries and the amount of times that the customers pick up, they're not directly related to each other. Obviously, if more customers come to pick up, then we'll have to bring in more product. But as far as them happening at different times, there's really no relation to it. So.
Okay.
So Adam, we talked about the trailer going away, but in one of the notes it said the buildings will not be heated or cooled. Are there any?
So the enclosure, the building is the enclosure for the tanks?
Where the tanks are?
Right, and the loading rack, which is just a covering over really like what's there, the existing loading rack, if you've driven by.
I've driven,
It's
yeah.
just putting an enclosure over top of a similar setup.
Just to expand, I appreciate you clarifying, but what would be the traffic flow? I mean, ultimately, my concern is there going to be a jam up of trucks there? And how would that be?
Directionally, how it
Yeah.
works? So most often, I think we've discussed, vehicles will come from Route 6. They'll come into the site this way. If they're loading, unloading, they'll come through here. With the maneuvers? Sure. Thanks. So this indicates the vehicles that entering the site, coming into the loading, unloading area, or coming into the loading rack, and then leaving either to the north or to the south back towards Route 6. I think we talk more often, they'll be coming from Route 6 from this direction and then turning around, and that was part of what Pat was discussing as far as the curb cut.
They get the benefit of a traffic light on this side.
Right.
Do you mind if I add any more things to that?
Please, come on.
And just to add to that, like we said in the beginning, the amount of business there's no increase in the amount of business that this project's gonna further create. And this project will, if, say we were in a busy time of year and there were a lot of trucks there, the improvements of the site, now that the site's being pushed back away from the road a little bit more, there's actually increased room for trucks to either pull off to the side or kind of park. So there would be a decrease of a parking jam up or, yeah, staging that you're concerned about. So,
All right, thank you.
no problem.
Do we have any concern with lighting and security? As far as, you know, is it gonna be fencing around the tanks, or I think Pat mentioned something?
Well, the tanks are going to be in the enclosure. And then we are showing lighting, which is showing here. Obviously, you know, we're sticking to the town requirement that we're below a foot candle at the property lines. So it'll be adequately lit without spreading off the site.
And Rich, you're satisfied with what you looked at with the lighting?
For this site?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was fine with the photographic.
It's not a highly illuminated area.
Right.
Right.
I thought it
Yeah.
might be for security reasons. It's not. That's what I have shown.
Right.
But
And again, the tanks are,
I think we heard that there were cameras, right? Automated cameras? Yeah.
Good. Any other comments? So I'll make a motion for schedule a public hearing.
I will make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, Adam.
thank you. On that topic, I did speak with Rose today. She was under the impression that there was adequate time for noticing for that public hearing to be opened on the 24th. So I'll coordinate with her unless there's any objection to that.
That's fine.
Great, thank you.
Normal timeframe.
10 days,
Today's
10 days.
Today's
Yeah.
10th. Get it out.
because we moved the meeting a day early. I think that saved
It
it.
actually made it easier for her, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Next on the agenda is TTSR LLC, 25 and 27 Seminary Hill Road. Mike?
Yeah, the applicant wants to legalize work that was done several years ago, actually by the previous owner, I believe. The property currently consists of a 4-unit building, a 7-unit building, a concrete block garage, and a separate 1.5-story, 2-family frame residence. The 2-family dwelling was converted to 4 families. The 1-family dwelling was converted to 7 units, and the garage was converted to the 2 additional dwellings, all without any permits or approvals. Use variance is required from the ZBA for the expansion. Provide a parking calculation. I didn't see it on the map at all. I need that before I can refer this to the ZBA, or before you should refer it to the ZBA. And there are 6 area variances required.
Thank you, Mike. Rick?
So to follow up on what Mike had just said, the applicant should note that both tax parcels are located in a New York City Department of Environmental Protection designated Main Street area. The applicant will need to contact the New York City DEP to confirm if any additional approvals are required. A lighting spill plan should be provided. There were lights shown on the drawing, but not a spill plan showing how they go off the property. Traffic movement plan should be provided with site distance calculations, driveway profiles, and slopes at the entrances. The existing condition plan still identifies Lamont Enterprises. It should show the new owner. That should be clarified. It does not, the existing conditions doesn't show if there are any parking spaces, so I don't know if there are any on the site. I'm sure there are, people are using them, but they should be identified. It's unclear if there's any proposed disturbance regarding the parking areas. And that should be, if there's any disturbance, we should know that for either stormwater with either the New York State DEC or the DEP. Should any public improvements be needed, there's a performance bond engineering fee. We should have a bonding for quantity takeoff for bonding. Would include striping in the parking area. So it would be minor, but it would still be something that's needed. And if there's anything that needs to be done with a stormwater maintenance bond, it may be required.
Thank you. Pat?
So this is another example, Mr. Chairman, of an existing non-conforming condition that the applicant is choosing to create, to legalize. The situation with these always is, if we chose to say no, it remains in a potentially unsatisfactory condition. It may not be code compliant and so forth. So we should make an effort to try to bring it up to code and legalize the condition that's going on the site. It's a good effort to go through. So two separate sites, they'd be merged, and it's an existing compound now, the way it operates. You wouldn't notice it to drive by it. It's very deceptive.
Yes.
But in fact, it's 12 dwelling units within those 3 buildings. So there's a lot going on the site. The primary issue is a ton of variances, so obviously this is primarily a zoning board issue. It's also a Mike issue because all of those buildings should be brought up to building code, fire code issue. That's a primary concern right now. They could be death traps. We don't know, but the effort should be made to bring those up to code, really important. And because we're looking at this during the site plan review stage, as Rich mentioned, issues like stormwater management, the DEP's role in stormwater management need to be addressed. So that site probably has no stormwater management, probably has no infrastructural improvements, the kind of things we would require today. Because we're considering this, all of that needs to be brought up to speed. So that's a lot of work, potentially a lot of work to do. We really don't know. So clarification and gaining an understanding of that with the objective to create a legal conforming, safe, and appropriate site.
Great, thank you.
And we do need to go through SECR on this, so I'd recommend designating lead agency so we can start the process tonight.
And the zoning can hear their case too.
Yes.
Comments from the board?
Just, you might have said, but just repeat, how long have those dwellings been there?
Since the late 50s, early 1960s, the buildings have been there much longer.
Not all of them, though, not the 2.
Correct. The
2 was
garage,
done afterwards.
yeah, the garage, and then the smaller structure in the back. There's 4 structures, 2 we'll call houses, then there's a 3-car stone garage, then there's another outbuilding. It used to be the pasta guy, if
Pasta
anybody would go
Domanda.
there. Yep, and they established an apartment above that.
Gotcha, okay, thank you.
So what is the business plan once this gets legalized? What is going to happen to the property?
Residential rentals, just as it is and as it's been for nearly 60 years.
So you just decided now to come forward to legalize this, or are you looking to sell the properties, or?
The applicant recently purchased the property.
There you go.
And we were in the process of trying to legalize it before the applicant purchased the property. We were seeking to establish it as a pre-existing non-conforming use. And part of the reason why we went that way is because the house structure to the right, that's tax map -70, on the assessment card from the town, it states it as a 7-family with a date of 1941. Now, Mr. Carnazza and I have a disagreement as it relates to that on the assessment card. It may have been added later, who knows? From my point of view, it's a town record that says 7-family 1941. And then obviously there's the other structure next door. That one there, we sought to establish as pre-existing non-conforming use as well, but we spoke to a gentleman named Edward Adams, who in the late 50s, early 60s, operated a funeral parlor on the bottom, and according to him, had 2 residences upstairs. So at that time, it was a mixed use, but we were having trouble establishing back to pre-1955.
So question 2, you said it'd be residential. Is there any idea if it's gonna be low income, middle income, luxury rentals? What's the plan? Are you at that point yet?
The applicant could elaborate if you'd like.
Please introduce yourself, speaking to the microphone.
Christopher D'Amelia. I hold majority ownership interest in the property. Our plan is to keep it pretty much operating in the use that it has right now, which is, I would say, middle income, not luxury, not specifically low income. The apartments have a range in terms of the market rent based on size and number of bedrooms. We're not planning on doing any significant cosmetic renovations to make them luxury units. Our intent as an investment group, when we buy properties, we've invested here in Carmel already. We invest in other areas of Dutchess County and Putnam County as well. We buy them as existing use. We don't want to kick people out of their homes. We want to make sure it's a good business decision to buy the building as it exists, not to completely change the usage of the property or upset people's living space.
So when you do, and maybe this is already there, but when you do renovate, is there any plan for ADA, people with disabilities or wheelchair ramps or
And
things
so,
like that?
Vicki, that's the point. So if it
Yeah.
is required, it will be
Okay.
mandated.
Perfect.
All of Mike's requirements must be done.
Excellent, okay, thank you.
So I'm still scratching my head about the future. What do you get by legalizing it that you don't have now as a pre-existing condition?
So, nothing specifically. The previous owner was sent a violation for the state of the building. Our intent upon purchasing it in good faith was to come forward as soon as possible with the town and legalize it as it exists, because we believe it's the right thing to do.
Are there any plans to expand the number of units?
Not at this time.
Is that something you were leaving open, or, I mean, the reason I ask is if you were creating this property today as a multifamily unit, you wouldn't be able to do it. And so I'm just trying to understand how or whether the legalization puts you in a better position to expand than it is now.
It doesn't put us in a better position. Again, our understanding is that the prior owner was already partially through the process, obviously hadn't come before the planning board yet, but had started work with Mr. Smith and Mr. Carell on making this happen. The plans were already in progress. The prior owner had already received a nonconformance statement from the town, and we wanted to continue moving forward with this plan to make sure everything was all set. I mean, one of the business benefits that just came to mind is we paid all cash for the building because a bank would not finance on it, looking at its financials and recognizing financials from 12 units if they're not legal with the town. If we wanted to refinance, to pull cash out, to do some other activities, this will enable us to do that, but that's not really has anything to do with what we're doing with the site.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
And if it's any reassurance about the single-family zone, he'll get try to get a use variance for 12 units. If he adds a 13th unit, that's another use variance going back to the whole process all over again.
And that area of the town on Seminary, there are several multifamily houses there.
No, as soon as you talk about the financing issue, now I understand it. Okay.
Aside from that, if we ever went
Yeah.
to sell the building, of course,
yeah.
that's a consideration as
Yeah.
well, which is not our plan anytime soon,
yeah.
considering we
Okay.
just purchased the building.
Okay.
Well, I mean, part of our concerns as a board is obviously, as Pat had pointed out, it's the safety of the tenants, so we need to have, Mike go in there and look at the apartments and make sure everything is up to code and safe, and if not, it needs to be remedied. And then also part of our responsibility is to make sure that, every property owner is a good neighbor, and they make sure that their property is kept up and so on. And having said that, I mean, I know the house, I drive past it all the time. Do you have any plans on sprucing up the outside, perhaps even painting the house?
Yeah, I've already done a number of things, and we plan to continue to improve the buildings. We've already replaced a number of windows. I mean, we've only owned the building for 6 months. We replaced a number of windows. We replaced all the gutters on one side of one building. There were appliances that were in dire need. This is not an exterior thing for the town, but appliances in dire need of replacement that we did right away. Frankly, the general sentiment, not to cast shade or anything, but the general sentiment of the residents of the building was that it was not kept up under the prior ownership, and we're doing our best to remedy that. We operate a property management company that has units elsewhere, and we have a reputation, and I have my real estate license, and we want to make sure that the place is run appropriately. So in addition to those things that we've already done, we're willing to work with the town on things that need to be done from a safety standpoint as well. But a power washing is in the near future for the whole site.
I think you got one of those last night.
And there's a number of things that need to be done and will be done to make sure the building is safe and nice to look at and all of the above.
Good, thank you.
Mike and Rich, do you see on applicants like this sometimes that if there's 12 families now and you're out looking at the house and you said, the only way we can do this safely is when we have 9 residents. Is that something that's happened in the past for you, or is that unusual, or you? Because I'm going back, just Pat mentioned it and Ray mentioned it. To me, the most important thing here is safety also. It seems like you crammed a lot of stuff into an old place and worry about fire hazard and whatnot, but maybe it can't be a 12-unit dwelling. I don't know.
The only good thing is my fire inspector has been out there every year for
Oh, yes.
years, yes. Even before, when we knew that this was there, he still continues to do his fire inspections,
Okay.
just for safety, because we're more concerned about that.
Okay.
Yeah, the two practical points that I was going to mention is, number one, that the property is subject to annual fire inspections that have taken place from the town, and there have been no issues. There is a violation issued by the building department related to the property as a whole, and that's why we're seeking site plan approval. Number two is that just the general character of the neighborhood. There's a multifamily next door. There are mixed uses across the street that have residences and offices. On Church Street, there's a number of buildings like this, and then obviously when you get to Route 6, it's very similar. So it fits very squarely within the character of this neighborhood. Obviously, that's an argument that we'll make before the zoning board. But if there are any questions related to site plan, engineering stuff, I'm not the guy. I would respectfully request it goes to Mr. Carell.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I have to go next door to the town board.
Thank you.
Have fun.
Hey, Rich. Rich.
I'm good, I just think, Pat hit the nail on the head. There's two things, we have to get this up to code, and we have to get it before the ZBA. The sequence of how that happens, we have to figure out, but those are two things, because in the end, we have an opportunity, which we've been saying all along, is to improve this site. So thank you for coming forward, trying to get it done, and, if we can, we'll work with you to get it where it needs to be.
Thank you.
I'd like to hear more, I'd like to see more when you come back as a site improvement plan. We have an opportunity here. We can help you work through this, but I think from an aesthetics and site improvement, you ought to do something.
Yeah.
I mean, every applicant that comes in front of us should leave us with a better looking site.
I don't disagree. And what I was going to respectfully request to the board this evening was the referral to the zoning board, because if we don't prevail at the zoning board, then I think what we'd be coming back before the planning board with would be much, much different. So as it stands right now, we would love to get before the zoning board, make our presentation there, give it a shot, and then come on back.
I think, though, there was some information that Mike needed before.
Parking calculation.
Parking? Yeah. Okay.
I don't know if it's,
I did the parking calculation. It's on the form. It's on the application form.
no, on the map.
The requirement is 24, and we have 20 spaces, so that's one of the things we're
It's gotta
going
be on
for
the map, Jack.
variance for. What?
It's got to be on the map.
The parking spaces are on the map.
No, the calculation has to be written on the map. 10 units, 20 units, whatever you have, at X amount of parking spots per unit equals this, and we have this many spots.
And I'd also add, with respect to seeker, so the use variance is technically subject to seeker at the zoning board level, so we should adopt the neg deck prior to the zoning board acting on this. So tonight, designate lead agency. It's not as though we're preventing the people from occupying the units. They're there.
Right.
We'll tell the judge if you appear before court that you're making progress before the board.
The deadline was
Thank you.
yesterday, so we missed this meeting coming up, so we're not holding you up at all.
Yeah.
The deadline was yesterday.
So let's follow the sequence. Let's go through
Or
seeker
today.
and then refer them to the zoning board.
So that being said, Ray, you want to make a motion to declare lead agency?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to declare this board as the lead agency.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
And Jack, just get that on the map, and then you're good to go. We could deny it. To get to the zoning board. The
Does he have
parking
to-
calculation on the plat.
Does he have to come back?
2 times 12, it's 24. It's in the application. I mean, why can't we go to the zoning board? I mean,
Speak into the microphone, and
Well,
you heard what he had to say.
We're on to
That's
next.
it.
We're on to the next case.
Next on the agenda.
Yeah.
Next on the agenda.
Good evening, Walt.
Good evening.
Next on the agenda is Cass Subdivision, 90 Mexico Lane. Mike?
The applicant wants to subdivide 132,422.4 square foot lot into two lots. Lot 1 will maintain the existing house, and Lot 2 will now be a building lot if approved. And a variance for lot area is required for both, and a rear yard variance for Lot 1.
Okay. Rich? Thanks, Mike.
So Mike gave it in the square foot. It's a 3-acre parcel that's going to be divided into a 1.56 and a 1.48 acre. So just to convert those numbers in general. Mike did it the right way because that's the way we do it here in town. There's an existing structure. Preliminary comments, provide a signed and sealed by a licensed surveyor, survey of the property. There's no information regarding areas to be preserved or proposed for reserve for open space. As the subdivision plans are refined, missing elements from section 131.13 should be incorporated into the design plans. The applicant should provide a separate subdivision plat, referrals to DEC, referrals to DEC, DEP, planning, 239M, Putnam County Department of Health, Department of Highway, and Mahopac Falls Fire Department. You may not need the Putnam County 239M. Permits may be needed for stormwater from the DEC or DEP, depending on area of disturbance. Putnam County for wells and SSTS. Again, there's no area to be disturbed, so we don't know what's going on there with regards to stormwater. Public improvements, performance bond, and engineering fees should be required, and there may be a need for a stormwater maintenance bond.
Thanks, Rich. Pat?
So this is an example of why we have 3-acre zoning in the town today. So as Rich pointed out, substantially undersized lots. The entire parcel barely meets the minimum lot area, and they're dividing it in half. If you look at the illustration, you'll see there's an existing well, and Paul has indicated the setback from that well, which extends well into the adjacent property. There would be a new well, which probably extends into the other property. Ordinarily, you want to have those things on the individual property themselves. Same thing with respect to septic systems. It's not illegal to do it that way, but that's why we have 3-acre lots. So all of that stuff remains on a single parcel. So it's an illustration of why this is a challenging subdivision. There's a new curb cut proposed on Mexico Lane. We'd have to take a look at site distances and typical work we would do with driveway locations. And not only sewer and water, but all the other utilities that would serve the lots need to be demonstrated on the property. The house is in a weird location down at the lower right-hand corner, so it's an odd configuration to begin with today. And Paul is demonstrating a theoretical house on that new lot. So again, the big issue is substantially undersized parcels.
So we're being asked to take a legal parcel and make it 2 illegal parcels.
Yeah. That's one way to say it, Mr. Chairman, yes. Again, if we want to move through this process, let's start seeker, designate lead agency, so we can start looking at the environmental issues associated with this as well.
So Paul, do you want to take us through this before I turn it over to the board and just tell us what the rationale here is, why you would want to do this other than build another house on the property?
Actually, the 1.5 acre size is pretty even with the other lots in that neighborhood, in that area. In terms of health department, that's usually what drives the bus on, whether or not you're going to be able to develop a lot or not. So we went out there and did our preliminary testing to make sure that we had adequate soils for soil depth, for deep holes, percolation, that kind of stuff. And, based on that information, if you're not thinking in terms of a 1.5 acre or a 3 acre lot, what you need to put on the lot works, and you are locked in by what exists around you, such as the uphill septics are in this area. So that's what causes me to bring my well down into this location. Outside of that, I have no impact on what would become Lot 1. I have no impact on the upper lots.
But Paul, that's not clear. So where's the well on Lot 1?
Lot 1 well is over on this side.
Add the setback around that well on the drawing so we can see it.
I can do that, but again, that is an existing condition. But obviously, I'll locate that and put it on the plan.
But the whole point is it's an existing condition on a 3 acre lot. So now that it's half the size, what are the implications of that?
Okay.
So you're saying that the well and the septic would fit on each
Yes.
1.5 acre lot? and meet our code?
Yes. If I couldn't get a well or septic to work on the lot, I wouldn't be here tonight. The client knew that. That was the first step. If you wanted to go down this road to see if you could subdivide the lot, well, you need to look at what are the constraints around you, such as other wells, other septics. What's your setback from the existing stream that runs through here to make sure you maintain your 100-foot separation, and if, whether or not you're going to have adequate site distance. So on a preliminary basis on our part, and just in terms of seeing if it's if there's a viability to do this, we did that. So that's why we're here tonight.
Questions from the board?
Paul, if you wouldn't mind, just point out wells, septics for each lot again for everybody. Where the existing home is, there's an existing home, right?
Existing home's on the bottom right there.
This is the existing home, so this is the existing driveway that comes up and loops around. That's the home. There's septic's in the front, and their well is off to the side. This is a lot uphill and behind the house. Access comes in off of a subdivision over in that location. This septic is here, and this driveway comes into a house located up here. And I forget where their well is, but I have those health department records.
So where's the septic for the new house? Where do you propose that?
That would be this piece right here.
Okay. I got you.
And then just to the top right is another home.
There's a home over here. There's a home back here.
And
this is the roadway that comes into service, and it turns, and I think there's another lot back in that area.
And the rectangular box is the septic for that home?
Correct.
No, up on top.
Yes.
And those neighboring properties are what size lots?
Roughly the same size, 1.5 acres.
That was the zoning requirement back in 82 to 2002, I believe.
So
And
is the
do any
plan
of,
to- sorry.
just one other question, and do any of them have, so they haven't subdivided the way you're?
No, they were part of a subdivision.
So is the plan to reside on one side and sell the other side, or sell both?
I think it's would be to sell this side.
Keep one side and sell the other.
Aaron's daughter lives in this house.
Okay.
Yeah, but backing up, we have an existing conforming lot and being asked to come up with two non-conforming lots.
Exactly.
That's my struggle.
Yep, mine too.
And where's the proposed driveway for the new? Okay.
Yeah.
So Paul, the rationale for this is just obviously financial gain, right? You have a lot, 3-acre lot, you want to divide it into, you want to put up a house and sell. These people lived here for a long time, I assume?
Yes.
I just have a hard time also. We have something that's
Yeah.
legal and the town board is saying, you know. All right.
I think one of the issues that comes up is that there have been other projects where lots have been subdivided that made, smaller lots than what, the 3-acre zoning is. So unfortunately, there's a precedence that exists.
So I don't know that there's a precedent. There have been other undersized lots that have been created. I don't know that there have been many that have been half the size of what's required. The only other thing I'd offer is that currently, as you know, the town board's considering a modification to the zoning, which may affect this area and may benefit the property owner at the moment, or when that's done. So it's just something to bear in mind.
Yep.
Do we know specifically what, if the master plan and the zoning code were adopted as proposed a year or so ago, how that would affect this? If you were, do we know that?
I do not know.
We can ask the consultants to find it.
Yeah. Well, it would be, I believe it'd be 1 acre.
I think it is.
If
But
that
we
answers
we
your
can
question.
confirm. Yeah.
So if it's 1 acre, it doesn't really solve the issue, does it?
Well, it might help the applicant.
It would help the
Help
applicant.
them.
Yes, I would not need to go to the
This got
zoning board for a
tabled until
variance.
Such time, then it's a whole different application.
Well, wait, your property is how big?
3 acres.
3 acres, okay.
So they're basically like 1.54,
Sorry, I'm sorry,
1.48
I'm
now.
sorry, yes, yes.
other parcels in that area that have houses on a 3-acre lot? Or are they all, to your point before, they're all on about 1.5?
I would have to go back and look at the tax
Yeah.
maps off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
That's a good point.
Yeah, I don't know the answer either.
Yeah, be
But it was
interesting.
definitely an R60 zone at the time, which was 1.5 acres.
Right, it just changed recently. right?
Anything up, that whole area of town was R60.
If you told me that this is going to become 1-acre zoning under the new code, part of me says, so, okay, we'll get a jump on it. The other part says, well, why don't we wait for that to happen?
Yeah.
And then, you know, he's doing it in conformity with the code.
My understanding is that's going to be the larger zoning that we were
Yes.
discussing.
Yeah.
The larger lots are going to remain up in this area. That's my understanding.
So this will not go to 1 acre?
That's my understanding. Nothing's set in stone yet.
1 acre
We'll,
with the new
we'll
plan.
we'll confirm.
Okay.
Remember, it was broken down in color codes.
So
Yeah, yeah.
if that's the case, if the town has made a decision not to, town board has made a decision not to go to 1 acre, why us?
So the town board has not seen the proposed changes yet.
No, I
There's a
understand.
team
If
looking
you
at it, so-
assume,
okay.
just assuming that what was proposed is what gets adopted, you know, it could change, but that gives you an understanding of where the town board's view of this is in that area.
Yeah.
And why would we second guess that?
What's your time frame on this, Paul? Is there a dire emergency here, or what's the, you know, one part of me says if we, as Anthony mentioned, table it, it helps you. It slows, you know, it slows things down and possibly, yeah.
I think it's something that the applicant would like to accomplish within this year. And I think, you know, obviously, our next step is that we would have to go to the zoning board to see if they would grant the variance for the area, as well as
Well,
setback.
First, we want to declare ourselves as lead agency, right?
Not for area, but,
I'm sorry?
not for an area variance, that doesn't have to happen, but yes,
Okay.
it is.
You still have to do seeker, but it doesn't have to be done prior to the
That's
zoning
correct.
board's acting. But like, your denial implies something. When you send things to the zoning board, it implies you're reasonably comfortable that the plan that you're sending to the zoning board is developable and feasible. So just bear that in mind. You shouldn't shirk your responsibility by saying, this is the zoning board's problem. You should give them your guidance in your referral.
Mm-hmm. Comments, any other thoughts from people? I tend to lean the way, what Anthony mentioned is, and what I kicked off the meeting with, is we have something that works today as a legal 3-acre lot. The town is looking at the code that will wrap up this year, hopefully the first half of the year. Given what we know today, I personally have I'm not speaking for any other board members, I personally have a hard time taking something that works today, that's legal today, and making it quote-unquote illegal in today's code. Now, Pat, that being said, we could send it off to the zoning board, just not to slow things down, with a negative
Yep.
recommendation. I'm not sure what the other board members think, but
And just to be fair about this whole process, if I were Paul, I would be telling you right now, let me do that neighborhood analysis and show you where there are 3-acre lots and 1-acre lots.
You-
That may help you
Yeah.
in making that decision, so.
Yeah, I'd rather give you that drawing so you can see how this fits into the community.
Until next meeting.
That'd be fine.
you want to table it for a while?
Yeah,
Okay.
that'd be
Just
good.
do an area map and color code it to half acre and larger than half acre, you know, whatever it is, so it's.
See, if there was some precedence here
Yeah.
on our end. I think that's the fairest thing, Paul, we all need more information.
That's fine. That's good. So,
Okay,
all right?
good discussion, thank you.
You're welcome.
Next on the agenda is G and F subdivision, Gateway Drive, bond return. Mike, I don't believe you had any comments on the bond return, correct?
I do not.
And Rich is out. Pat, would you mind summarizing
Sure.
Rich's comments, please?
I have no issues with this. Rich has a breakdown. There is $1.5 million bonds approximately that we have for this. Top coursework, guide rail work, sidewalk, storm motivation, and landscaping work has been done. That's identified.
That's what's,
Oh, yet to be done.
that's what's yet to
Okay, so that's yet to be done. All the other work that totals 1.5 has been done. So the work would be, Rich is recommending a reduction to $320,000, which is 20% of the original bond. So he's recommending a reduction.
Questions from the, this is just really a Rich thing, so if no one's got any questions, someone make a motion to schedule.
Actually, before, just a question for the record. Are there any disagreements or discrepancies with work has to be done? on
No,
your
this is
part?
normally Rich identifies those in these memos. There is none of that here, so it's clean. It appears to me to be clean.
And you agree with what has to be done?
Someone make a motion to schedule a public hearing? I'd like to get the public's feedback on this anyway.
All right.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nice job, Dawn.
Thanks, you guys, make it easy for us.
Didn't know there were two boards.
Next on the agenda is 14 Nicole Way for bond return also. Pat, would you mind reading Rich's comments?
Yep, so this is a project that we all spent a lot of time on. We had a $242,000 bond, which is identifying that they did a very good job on the site, and he's recommending a full return.
And you also got a letter from me. That was a waiver that I gave for the lighting. It was way too much up front. And it was, without putting the lights in that were required, it's already spilling off a little towards the front. So by putting them, it would have gone onto the houses across the street, so we eliminated them. So
Great.
I gave the waiver on that one. And notified the board.
Yeah.
This is a project that came out great.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Very pleased with it.
Looks like a house.
Very good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good job.
Have you had any comments from the neighbors in the area? Because I remember there was one person worried about, landscaping, so you didn't have to see the back of the building.
Mike heard the complaint.
I haven't spoken to him in a while.
Okay, good.
Not
It
a
came out
surprise.
nice. I mean, I remember being out there with the highway department,
Yeah.
looking at the right,
Yeah, it looks great.
the traffic flow, and great job. Good model for the town. Someone make a motion to schedule a public hearing. We'll hear from the neighbors at the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Is there a possibility we could prepare the resolution so it could be streamlined if we have no
I
issues
think
at
so in
the?
this case. I'm sorry?
Not for bond return.
Oh, okay, no bond, no
So it-
resolution.
Once that happens, it goes to the town board and then
Have the
And
public
done.
hearing and then go to town.
Good. So this will be the last step in the public hearing?
the town board would be,
Right.
I believe, right, Pat?
Yep.
Town board releases the money after the recommendation from the board. This board.
After the
Well,
town.
they'll have our
Public
recommendation.
hearing,
We'll
right?
schedule a public hearing.
Yeah,
Great, thanks again, nice job.
yeah, it's beautiful.
Next on the agenda is Patty Fabian, 112 Stillwater Road, regrading application.
This is the one we discussed in the past, whether to remove the fill or not remove the fill. I believe the DEP or C said to remove the fill, correct?
Yeah, we have an email from Sarah in DEC. They want the fill removed, and one of the reasons we're here is for this board, Rich wanted this board to make the determination that we
Well,
should go
let's go
ahead.
through the memos, but the fill was contaminated, I believe.
We sampled 5 locations. 2 of the locations were contaminated slightly. And one was a very small.
Let's, Jack, I'm
Okay.
sorry, jump there, let's go. Pat, would you mind summarizing Richard's comments? Mike, you didn't have any comments.
So Ray has highlighted the memo appropriately.
That's what it is.
Applicant will need to have the soils removed and disposed of per New York State DEC. That's Rich's conclusion. The applicant is requesting the permission to remove those soils. And all other engineering comments have been addressed. So that would involve, that's the clarification. The material would be removed, and that's what we're asking for.
Jack, you want to explain or want to discuss with us why we would allow leaving contaminated soil, albeit little, on the site?
Why we would allow it to be on the site? It would, he put some fill in his backyard, unbeknownst to everybody. I guess the neighbors turned him in, and it came to the building department or Rich, and we did the sampling that the town requires. We hired a consultant to review the data, and also we discussed it and we sent the data to the DEC, and the consultant and DEC recommended, or the DEC required the removal of the two areas. One is a very small area. They just dumped a couple yards over this wall, and the other side area was right in here. And the DEC has this unrestricted residential use, and so we're going to remove that.
Can I go back a step? My recollection from previous meetings is there was some fog around what the meaning of the test results were. And we were holding up, shrugging our shoulders and say, what do we do with this? Am I understanding correctly that the way that's now been worked out is you've presented that to the DEC, those results, and the DEC says,
remove them.
This is what we want you to do, we want you to remove it.
These sites would have to be remediated, and the other sites do not.
There are certain instances where disturbing it again will be worse. This is not one of them. They want it removed.
I understand, but,
Yeah.
you know, this solves the issue
Correct.
that we were.
Are you going to replace the fill with clean fill after you remove the fill that you remove?
Yes, we have a construction sequence.
Otherwise, you have a bowl that's going to be full
Yeah.
of
No,
water
yeah,
and it becomes an issue.
he wants to, his whole reasoning of doing that was to level his backyard so his children could play soccer. So, and apparently prior to that, it was kind of uneven territory.
So your final map shows a flat backyard like a soccer field?
Well, we saw some grading in here to just level it off. The area of disturbance is this area, and then this little.
My point is, I don't want him to dig out the dirt, put the dirt back, and be not happy, and then have to refill it again, and put more dirt in and find out it's contaminated. Let's do it at once, and I think would be best for the whole board.
Yeah, that's why we show grading on it.
Final?
Yes.
Good, thank
Yeah.
you.
And what's going to be the disposition of the dirt that you're removing?
We have to take it to an approved DEC site.
And that would happen under DEC
Yeah,
supervision.
and I will be there, because we have to make a determination that this fill, which areas, how much fill has to come out. And it'll be a decision between Rich, me, or more like Rich and DEC, and me.
And then there's manifests on the trucks go somewhere, they get a manifest that they received it, and all the records come back, and we end up with the
Correct.
full record of what happened with the fill.
So I believe we're all in agreement to follow the DEC's
Yep.
request.
There's only one tricky issue with this, which is the upper right-hand area is not on their property, it's on the neighbor's property. So is there permission, is there some?
I think that's
The
DEP
neighbor's the
property.
DEC.
Okay.
City of New York.
It's DEP property, and they will be involved also.
Okay. I don't know if Joe's gonna want some letter from them or something of the sort, just.
Well, I would get something.
Okay.
All right, so we'll see you back here then, right? Pat, we'll see you back after the remediation, right?
So no, you would grant the permit to allow the remediation to occur. So you direct the preparation of a resolution for this, if you're ready to go.
Public hearing?
Did we have a public hearing? We haven't had a public hearing on this.
Not on this one.
Public hearing.
So we need to schedule a public hearing.
I'll make a motion to schedule a public hearing.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Thank you. I showed Mike a map of the first project, and the parking calculation is on the map. Will that make a difference?
I think it just goes on the next agenda.
It doesn't matter. You're
It's not-
not
it's
missing
not
a
gonna-
meeting.
we're not gonna
The-
slow down
The
anything
deadline
anyway.
was today, at 2 o'clock.
Just ask.
Yeah. Is there anyone from Dupas or Keely's 441 Route 6 here?
Can I explain it to you guys anyway?
Yes.
Joe Castro convertible building. He wants to put a front facade on there, dress it up, cover his sidewalk, the entryway. Yeah.
It's
There's
where
no
it's where the Polish deli is, that's strip mall.
room cottage.
Room
Yeah,
cottage,
yeah,
whatever it's
yeah.
called. And
Pet wash
there's no
next
use
door.
associated with it, so he's asking for a waiver. It's too close to the property line. He does need a variance, so that's what he'll be asking for when he does
And
come
it's
back.
an upgrade to the,
That's definitely.
He's gonna make the facade nice, yeah,
Yeah.
instead of the block.
All right, so we're gonna hold this over.
Yeah. None of us had issues with it,
Right.
Except the variance.
except.
But we're not gonna take this
Yeah,
up the
they gotta
agenda,
be-
we still gotta be held over. And then, do we have approval, to approve the minutes of December 14th, 2023 that Rose distributed?
Mr. Chairman, I reviewed the minutes, suggested some changes, so I would make a motion to approve the minutes as amended.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everybody, Happy New Year.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So, Mike, what can you?
Yeah, yeah.